Geometry correction brackets, what do they do? Why would you want them? And how do you get a set for free? Watch till the end of the video and we'll be giving a set away. All right, so let's talk about some slang in the industry. Geometry brackets, geo brackets, drop brackets, they're all the same thing. What we're really talking about is geometry correction brackets. So when we take a Jeep, looking at the control arms right here, before it's lifted, our goal after we lift it is really to bring the geometry back as close to stock as we can, because we're gonna get a ride similar to stock, or a lot of times we can even get it better. Now, before we lift it, our control arms and our lower control arms, really what I'm really worried about, it's pretty well flat, pretty well parallel to the ground. As we lift it and put a longer spring in here, two things are gonna happen. One, this angle is obviously gonna increase because it's gonna push down. So that lower control arm's angle is going to come down, and it's going to work on that arc. So we have less caster in that front axle. So what a geometry correction bracket is going to do is where these two mount on the frame, it's going to mount into there, and it's going to give us a new mounting point for the rear of these arms. So we're going to drop that down. We're going to bring this lower control arm, the rear of it is going to come down to be back flat, similar to stock. The upper control arm is going to come down to give us similar angle separation that we had in stock form. And then that does two things. Artificially, it makes this control arm longer, and it pushes out the lower part of the ball joint and gives us more positive caster, like a chopper motorcycle, making the Jeep want to drive straighter. It's going to be a lot happier, and it's going to work a lot better. All right, so we got our Jeep, we put a lift kit in it, and we haven't adjusted anything. This is the way it would be with no correction brackets or anything like that. Look at the lower control arm. Obviously, the longer spring we put in there, lift it up higher, it's going to go more like this. When we hit a bump, more force is going to come into this control arm, and it's going to force up into the frame, into the seat, and you're going to feel it really. Now, the flatter I can keep this lower control arm more parallel to the ground, obviously, when we hit these bumps, more force is going to come up into the spring where we really want it. That's what the spring's designed to do. That's where we want it. Two ways of doing that. You can either physically make this control arm much longer and go to like what we would say was like a long arm system or something like that, or we can do some drop brackets like we're talking about right here. But if you're making your own custom suspension or anything like that, you can think about that. The lower and the flatter we can keep them lower control arms, the better this vehicle is going to ride, and then the more opportunity for down travel we're going to have as well. Now, for years, if you had like a TJ or an XJ or something like that with much shorter arms than the JKs and the JLs, everybody always said the only way you're going to get these things to ride right or drive right is going to a long arm system. Well, the reason they were saying that was because with even a shorter arm than this, it's at even a steeper angle, and those arms were much shorter. So as soon as we started lifting it, they got at such an angle that you would drive and you'd feel it right through the floor, man. You'd feel it right in the seat every time you hit a bump. And then you put a long arm system on it, you put a nice, longer, lower control arm on it that's a much flatter, dude, they'd ride so much better. So that makes a lot of sense, and we'll go install some. All right, so we'll pop the box open, show you what's inside. Let's see what Rancho all sent. We're gonna have instructions. We got stickers, we got Rancho stickers, cool instructions, got hardware pack. Inside, they mount the brackets nicely. Oh, they're nice and heavy. In foam, so they're not bouncing around and getting all scratched up on you. Has a nice E-coating, nice single piece design, so you're not jumbling around with multi-piece brackets and all that stuff. We have adjustment bracket or holes for the lower control arms, so we can dial it into the right ride height that we're at. So if we're at a 2-inch lift, a 4-inch lift, whatever, it's all covered right here. They're, like I say, they're a single piece design, all welded in America, high strength, low alloy steel, so it'll bend instead of break. Other than that, it seems like a really nice Really nice piece, nice E-coating on it. We'll toss them in the Jeep and then we'll start explaining what they'll do. So before I rip the Jeep apart, I really wanted to point out some stuff. This Jeep's on 37-inch tires on 2.5 inches of lift. It has aftermarket fenders on it so we can keep the Jeep pretty low. Now, a lot of doing so is we're worried about that lower control arms. So if you can see right here, them guys in there, they're sitting at a little bit of an angle. So let's pop under here and check out. I got one side installed so I can show you. If you look the way I did it, I left the vehicle sitting right on its tires. I didn't use a jack. I did it intentionally so you can show yourself that you can do it right in your garage on the ground. Now we climb up underneath here and we'll do our best to see it with the lighting. You'll see that geometry correction bracket installed right in there. We got obviously different bracket all locations for our upper control arm. I'm up at the highest one. If we're running a taller lift, we're going to move our way down. Rancho sent all the specs right in there and they're going to tell you where to run it for your lift height. Next thing is we made sure to use a torque wrench and torque dollar bushing sitting at ride height so you'll get a better ride out of it. We got the new hardware in there holding it in. It turns out pretty nice. Compared to my other side, you can even see the angle right there. How once we get that bad boy in there, flattens out that lower control arm quite a bit. And now that's gonna obviously help our ride quality immensely. And then by moving that location right down, it all automatically pushed out the lower side of the the front axle. So it gives us a little bit more positive caster and a little bit better, tighter driving feel. Super easy difference to see right here. This is the stock side. We got the geometry correction brackets on the far side, and you'll see that angle difference right there and see how much flatter that far side is. If you're watching, maybe you saw my little trick of working by myself. I'll use a ratchet strap to get holes lined up or anything like that. It makes it really nice if you find a good spot on the frame, and you can find a spot on the axle. When we're putting track bars in, I'll use a ratchet strap all the time to pull it over, and it just helps if you don't have an extra person to help you along. The ratchet strap will work great. The other thing is you can always, when the tires are sitting on the ground, if we want to move them back and forth, get on that big tire and roll it. That'll move the axle forward and backwards. It makes it a lot easier. So, $1 million question. How are you going to win a set of these geometry correction brackets? Easy. Go over, like Rancho, like Dr. Death Wobble, share the post or anything like that, and then comment down below that say done, and the Friday after we show this video, we're gonna pick the winner. If you're watching the video after we've picked the winner, hey dude, buy them, you'll love them, they're great. And spring of 2019, right now, when this video is released going on, Rancho has tons of rebates going on, so now's the time to buy some and save some money.